I'd like to share something I learned from the great Rabbi Jonathan Sacks of blessed memory about leadership, humility, and also that leaders are human too. In this Torah portion, Behaaloscha, we see Moses, Moshe, breaking down. So before this, we've seen him as a worker of miracles. He's unafraid to confront Pharaoh. He's leading the Jewish people to Mount Sinai. But in this Torah portion, we have a very different picture. The Jewish people are in the desert. They receive the Torah from Mount Sinai, and they are complaining again about food. They have manna, but they have no meat. So what do? They say to Moshe, "Oh, we remember the fish that we used to eat in Egypt for free. And the cucumbers, melons, leeks, garlics, onions," right? Did they have amnesia, what Egypt was really like? So the Jewish people were complaining a lot. And this one was one too many for Moshe. And he says to God, "Why did you bring all this trouble to your servant? Why have I not found favor in your eyes that you're placing the burden of this entire people on me? Did I conceive this people or give birth to them that you tell me to carry them in my lap the way a nurse carries a baby? I cannot carry this whole nation. This burden is too heavy for me. If this is how you're going to treat me, please kill me now. If I have found favor in your eyes, because I cannot bear seeing all this misery." So he sounds pretty broken. But what happens next begins a great transformation. God tells him to take 70 elders who will bear the burden with him. God takes the spirit that's on Moshe, he extends it to the elders, and two of the people who become prophets, they start prophesying in the camp, and Joshua, who is the most trusted student of Moshe, is afraid that this might lead to a challenge to the leadership of Moshe. And he urges Moshe to stop them from prophesying in the middle of the camp. But Moshe answers and he says, "Are you jealous on my behalf? I wish all God's people were prophets, and he would rest his spirit on each of them." So actually, this is what alleviates his crisis and cures his depression. He sees he's not alone. There's 70 elders now who are sharing his spirit. You know, in the ancient world, leaders were not into sharing power. They were not into collaboration. They built temples in their own hour, statues. They were totally full of themselves. Their role was not to serve, but to be served, right? Everybody else was expected to be humble, but not the king, not the Pharaoh. In Judaism, the opposite is true. Leaders are there to serve, not to be served. And the end of the story, the Torah of this Torah portion, the Torah makes a great statement about Moshe. It says, "The man Moshe was very humble, more so than any man on the face of the earth." So Moshe had been alone for too long. It was not that he needed the help of other people to provide the people with food. God could do that. But what he needed was the company of other people to end his almost unbearable isolation. We cannot live alone. We cannot lead alone. And when Moshe saw that the 70 elders shared his spirit, his depression disappeared and his humility deepened. Sometimes it's a crisis that helps us become more humble, to see that we need help. We cannot live alone or lead alone. When we take our pain and we try to turn it into something sacred, when we put ourselves, as Rabbi Sacks says, in fraternity with the wider community, this moves us out of ourselves and into a life of humble service. I think C.S. Lewis puts it best when he says, humility is not thinking less of yourself, it is thinking of yourself less. When we think about ourselves less, we can think more about how we can collaborate with others for the greater good of our communities and our world. Wishing everybody a beautiful Shabbos.